There's a lot that's been going on in social media world recently, and we're going to be compiling a bunch of the latest social media news together and delivering it to you guys, including the Mini Minter podcast that he does with Randolph and whether it's coming back or not. Adin Ross finally being unbanned on Twitch and him absolutely breaking it, and should someone like Kaisenat be scared? Vikkstar talking out against KSI and the recent fights that he's been taking. Adin Ross doing some absolutely crazy stuff when it comes to Shaq. And then we've got our boy Fousey towards the end. So strap yourselves in. I'm going to keep you up to date with everything. Starting with Mini Minter. So Mini Minter's obviously got the What's Good podcast that he did with Randolph. They've not uploaded to it for a very, very long time. And it was fine. It was fine. But Simon has confirmed that the What's Good podcast is actually unlikely to return. So it was launched 6 years ago. It released 268 episodes. It gained over 1 million subscribers and amassed 750 million views on YouTube, TikTok, and its Instagram. Now, that's an absolute juggernaut of a podcast, to be fair. They had different guests on, including KSI, other members of the Sidemen. And, they were just basically keeping us up to date with the inside information with regards to everything Sidemen and with regards to everything else. But when you think about what's going on with Mini Minter and the Sidemen as well, they've already got the Sidecast, which is the Sidemen's podcast over on, I think it's on Side Plus. So obviously, there's not really a lot of space for more than just kind of one podcast when they're already doing that over there, and they're probably making a lot more money over there than on the What's Good podcast. So it seems to have been dissolved, which is a shame, because it was a decent podcast. It was like the happy hour but Sidemen edition. It was always an interesting listen, but obviously, we got Waffling back with Joe Weller, so I guess there's silver linings. Moving on, though, Adin Ross has finally been unbanned on Twitch after 2 whole years. Now, you may remember Adin Ross getting banned, and the reason for his ban was because he basically had unmoderated chat. And Twitch didn't like that. They were like, oh, hell no. It's a real weird one, because you've obviously got Kaisenat, who's done a lot of crazy stuff, like filming a 16-year-old when he was taking a dump. There was the magician incident that took place where the guy almost hung himself. And you've got then Adin Ross getting banned after for 2 whole years, which meant that he obviously became the king of Kick. To be fair, it was probably Adin Ross's ban that actually sparked the birth of Kick. It was it was shortly after that Adin Ross kind of returned to streaming, but he has since returned to streaming, and on his first live stream back, he did bits. He did 300,000 viewers. Insane statistics right there. Obviously, it's big numbers, very big numbers on his first stream back. Obviously, the numbers have plateaued since, as you can probably imagine. I think he's still kind of just fluctuating between YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. Obviously, I'm going to assume he's probably got a huge Kick deal, so he's probably being told that he has to stream there at least for a little bit. But other streamers have also come out to talk about Adin Ross being allowed back onto Twitch. One person includes Sinner, who had this to state.
People are saying, sadly, people can change. You know what I mean? Hopefully, he doesn't keep baiting, the white supremacists, everything like that. I think people can change. You know what I mean? I think he did shitty stuff before. Hopefully he changes. If he doesn't, then I'm sure Twitch will deal with it. You know what I mean? But hopefully he does. I don't think that half the stuff he does, would be allowed on Twitch anyway. So, kind of is what it is. It's one of those things. But I do think it's like Twitch permanently banning people is always bad. You know what I mean? Even if you don't like a person, it's always bad. As long as you can hopefully grow from it and change, that's what's better. Now, I do say that loosely, but then there's streamers like fucking Johnny Somali that exist, and let's be real, let's keep him far the fuck away from Twitch. Please, for the love of God. That's holy fuck, dude. Let's keep him far away.
Johnny Somali is another story for another day. Obviously, he's just Johnny Somali at this point. He's made a name for himself. But obviously, him returning is pretty big for the platform. But a lot of people are wondering, well, what does this mean for Kaisenat? Well, not a lot. A lot of people are kind of clowning on Kaisenat at the moment because obviously he's not done a lot to kind of get Adin back, allegedly, onto Twitch. even though, you know, Kai Cenat's got a lot of pull power when it comes to Twitch, apparently. But the second that he was allowed back on Twitch, the phone comes up and he's going on the phone to Adin Ross talking about his comeback. Obviously, I can't imagine that Kai Cenat's going to get knocked off that pedestal. He is that guy when it comes to streaming over on Twitch. I don't think anyone's really going to dethrone him that quick. But moving forwards, obviously KSI has been a big talking point recently, especially after his recent fights that have been announced, like Dylan Dennis and stuff like this. Obviously, he pulled out of the Dylan Dennis fight because he's got a flu of some description. But Vic appeared on a podcast, obviously Vic Star, member of the Sidemen. And one of the talking points that they spoke about was actually KSI's fights, and they kind of alluded to the idea that KSI's not taking great fights right now. Like, there's nothing explosive about it. This is what Vic had to say on the matter.
Do you think that he should be fighting Dylan Dennis, which is a bit of an interesting one because he didn't punch Logan once?
Yeah. As a general, I think his fighting super impressive. It's a very entertaining spectacle. He's good at it. He puts his heart and soul into it. But I think, me and the rest of the Sidemen have said in content unanimously, we're only interested in specific fights. I think the Tommy Fury was a great fight. It was really tough, challenging, interesting, excited to see.
Do you think he won?
I want to watch it back because I only saw it from a long way up in the box, as you saw.
Good answer. Diplomatic.
Yeah, so I'd have to watch it back. I'm not sure, but like the Logan Paul fight, the Tommy Fury fight, these ones make a lot of sense. But obviously, you do need that experience, which is what he always says. He wants to be kind of active fighting. Mm-hmm.
It's obviously a tune-up fight. I just think it's interesting that he chose Dennis, and I know that Wayne Bridge pulled out, but I kind of feel like that was JJ's fault as well for kind of getting so quick into the personal stuff. But
yeah, I think also it's very difficult for him because he has to align ideally with someone who's as big, as well known as him, and also technically as skilled as him, and that makes the perfect fight. That is, and I'd say the only time that was truly met was with Logan Paul 1 and 2, which were these huge spectacle fights. And I think the closer you can get to that, the better the fight is.
Well, it'll be Jake, won't it?
Yeah. But whether that happens or not, we're not hopeful it will.
Okay.
But I would say, the further a fight is from that, the less interested we all are in it as the Sidemen. But at the same time, I respect him, still doing his thing, still putting his neck on the line every single time he steps in the ring. It takes a lot, and
yeah, it's not wrong. Obviously, he has to marry up technical ability of the fighter alongside the commercial pull. Now, there's been theories floating around the internet recently that the reason that JJ pulled out of that fight against Dylan Dennis is because maybe the pre-sale tickets and pay-per-view numbers just weren't quite there. And obviously, when you've got Jake Paul pulling the numbers like he did over on Netflix for for Mike Tyson, and obviously the fights that he's had prior to this, numbers are just as important as the win. And unfortunately, that's just the case. So maybe the numbers weren't quite there for the Dennis fight just yet, so maybe postponing it, building up a bit of a narrative potentially about being unwell could potentially help the numbers get a bit more exposure out there and stuff like this, but who knows. Anyway, going back to Adin Ross, he has been cited in the crowds of, I'm not sure if it's an NBA game or something like this, but sat next to Shaquille O'Neal, obviously one of the biggest people on the entire planet. And he had the audacity to slap some snacks, that was a bit of a tongue twister, out of the guy's hands. Guy's got balls of steel. I mean, why? It's one of those ones where you're just like, why have you done this? You can see, though, within the video, he's thinking, should I, shouldn't I, should I do it? And then instant regret. Adin Ross suffering from instant regret there. Right, the last thing we're going to talk about is our boy Fousey Tube. Now, obviously, he's being over on Kick doing his 30-day water challenge, right? That's all over now, and that's kind of done and dusted. But one of the biggest things to kind of come out of the last month is the fact that he seemingly has lost everything. At least that's what he's telling people. Apparently, he's lost his Tesla. Apparently, he's lost his house, or he's losing his Tesla, losing his house. Apparently, he's still got his Lamborghini, but he's looking like he can't afford much right now, so he's having to go down the renting route, the private rental route. Now, for most people, that would be kind of normal, but obviously Fousey is always being quite proud and pride himself on his finances and how well financially he's doing, but it seems like that may not necessarily be the case, as this clip has circulated around the internet.
You lose access to your online portal and everything, and they just close it. So my Chase auto loan and my Chase credit cards were not taken care of while they were closed, as I didn't know, and my credit score got hit, and my credit score got, and which up the loan amount, and which up the interest rate on the house. So the house situation just went from like, oh hell yeah, to oh fuck, where they're saying like, yo, it might actually be better for you to just rent out again until you can get your credit back up to where it should be and the interest rates can go down. Interest rate is like makes 0 sense.
I mean, it absolutely sucks for Fousey, right? Like we see him as this figure of crashing out all the time, and that is ultimately what he is, and he knows that. That is the persona that he puts out to the internet. But it's still sad to see someone who's kind of like, you know, been at the height of YouTube at one point. Like, this guy was that guy, and then slowly just kind of declined into being a bit of a lolcow. What do you guys make of this whole situation, though? Let me know your thoughts and opinions on all of this down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump to get the hell out of that like button, subscribe if you're new, and until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace.